very happy to welcome you to another session of our case study. And joining us today with us is Bernat Garcia, who's an engineering manager leader from CELO, from Spain, a company which is a leader in the global fastener industry. Right? So welcome, Bernat. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks very much for this opportunity.
Okay, that's awesome. So, folks, let me first maybe do a quick introduction of CELO, and I will let Bernard probably do more justice to it and explain to it a bit further. But CELO is an amazing company. They are a global leader in high precision fasteners. They manufacture a vast range of screws, bolts, nuts, washers, engineering solutions that actually go into multiple industries, right? So things that they go into automotive, electronics, electrical, construction, appliances, the whole works. They have actually acquired quite a few companies, and today they are considered to be a very dependable and high-tech partner for many of the large engineering industrial companies, right? So they're headquartered in Spain. Bernard, I would welcome you to add to the introduction, right, of the
Yeah,
company.
well, yeah, as you mentioned, we are a company headquartered in Spain, actually close to Barcelona. We are just 20 kilometers from Barcelona. And yeah, we are a company which is mainly dedicated to provide assembly solutions to our customers, whether they are in the construction sector or industrial sector, as you mentioned, with automotive and electronics customers. And yeah, and this is we are based on Spain, but we have factories all around the world. We have factories in Spain, of course. We have factories in Germany, in China, and US. And recently, we opened a new factory also in Mexico. So we have some, let me say, a worldwide network of manufacturing sites that where we can produce our products to our customers.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, right? Having a company with or having a manufacturing operation with multiple countries, multiple geographies, multiple time zones, multiple languages, that adds a lot of complexity because, I've actually worked with a company like that before where, when they do project planning, they need to take into account the local holidays, you need having a calendar, that really accommodates all of that. That itself can be a challenge, right, in project management. So I'm glad that you brought it up. But before we jump into the questions, Bernard, love to hear about you, your role, what do you do in CELO, what has been your experience so far, a little bit about your career.
Yeah, basically, I'm a chemist, but actually, I'm managing the application department is responsible to give technical support to our customers whenever they have a problem with a current product or they need assistance in developing or designing a new solution. And we also develop new products. So we are just giving technical assistance, but we also develop market based on our initiative. This application engineering team is global, so we have different engineers spread around the world and the one managing them. Apart from this role, I have several other roles, namely because I have some experience in terms of sales. So I'm also collaborating in the sales process, helping designing internal procedures and adapting softwares to improve our sales. And recently, I got the appointment of implementing a mindset of project oriented company, because nowadays it's something that we were not so efficient, let me say, in managing projects in terms of this organization because of problems like you mentioned, the global issue, coordinating efforts in different sites, and many other things. Yeah, it's more a cultural change that I'm supposed to be implementing, which is a challenge by itself.
Sure. Thanks a lot for sharing your profile and background, a very impressive background. Now, let's jump straight into a set of questions, right? And the focus today is really on project and portfolio management, right? So let's talk about a few challenges that you had before evaluating, Profit.co, right? Primarily on your work. What were the main challenges your team faced with project management and portfolio management, Bernard?
Well, I must say that the main challenge is that, let me say that we are a company, as we were growing a lot during the last years, we were at the time a small company very oriented towards results, quick results. So we were a very active company. That means that sometimes we jump into projects without properly assessing them. So basically, we were executing things without uh, thinking or without reflecting a little bit on how aligned were those projects or those tasks we were going to execute to the company's strategy, meaning that sometimes we started things and we will never finish them, or finished things that were not so relevant for the company success. So on one hand, we are very agile, we are very fast and quick doing things, but in the other hand, we are wasting resources because we are not properly managing those projects. So that's one of the main challenges. And also another big challenge is the heterogeneity of the team. So we have teams which are very structured and capable of working with projects, and other teams which are more reactive and less reflective, let me say. And so we have also this problem, that having different roles, different profiles. I also explained to you that that's the reason why we were implementing this project methodology and the project software also by stages instead of developing all to all the company, because otherwise I think the challenge is too big. But that's the idea.
Okay, awesome. And the number of people who are involved in the projects and who will be using, the project management tools across the company globally, what would be the number, Bernard?
For us, in this first stage, it will be roughly 25 people.
Okay.
And in next year, if this implementation in the corporate, regional, and division management level, it's working fine, probably will uh, involve also the department leaders and the local responsibles. So we can jump from 25 maybe to 100 people in the
Okay.
following year or in a year and a half.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. And talking about continuing to talk about the challenges, right? Were there any specific pain points that the team encountered in managing the product portfolio, right? For example, let's say it's lack of visibility or difficult in prioritizing. These are some common
Yeah.
challenges, but what were the specific pain points that you had actually encountered?
Well, we have actually let me say, first of all, lack of visibility.
Mhm.
So from the top management, it was very difficult to understand and to know and to get organized what projects were ongoing in our departments or in our organization. So this was one of the pain points, that we were not really aware of how many projects we were uh, executing. And sometimes this caused problems like overloading people with too many things to do. The other thing, of course, is prioritization, because in some cases we started with projects we were not that relevant compared to other ones that were not considered as priority.
Mhm.
And yeah, basically these two issues. Mm.
That's awesome.
Apart from the fact that we are lacking a proper methodology. That's something.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
So these challenges, did they have an impact on your overall efficiency and productivity? What has been the experience?
Sure, yes. I already mentioned a little bit before, is uh, there were some people tending to burn out because of this lack of prioritization, and also lack of visibility also make more difficult to see and understand if the projects were really aligned to what the top management of the company was requiring from people and from the company. So yeah, this was
Okay.
creating issues.
I think that's a very important point that you mentioned because you have a very highly skilled workforce, very specialized workforce, and burnout of these employees and team members. I think it's definitely a very serious issue. So I'm glad you brought that up. Now, just coming to the tools, because the focus for today is really about what sort of tools you were using and what were the selection, what was the selection process, right? To give people a glimpse of it. So were there any limitations with the previous project management tools that you were actually using? And please feel free to mention the tools that you were using. Yeah.
Well, in terms of tools, I will not say there were major problems.
Okay.
There was one major problem for me, which is the approval process. So, as I mentioned, we are very used to execute things when sometimes on a whim when we think this could work, and we were lacking in the other tools that we consider or we saw in the market were not really that easy to ensure that there is a consistent approval flow to assess that the projects that we want to carry on are really aligned, and are really approved, the resources are well dimensioned. So this is one of the particular limitations that we saw.
Okay. And when you talk about approval process, are you talking about the prioritizing and really deciding upon which projects to pursue?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. Thanks for mentioning that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the evaluation process and criteria that you had used for
Mhm.
selecting a project and portfolio management tool, right? So, what was the process that you had actually used internally at CELO for the evaluation, and what sort of criteria, decision criteria did you use to evaluate the potential solutions? Can you throw some light, Bernard? Yeah.
Uh, so between the different solutions that we got, for us it was easy implementation. That was of the most important criteria, because what I said before, that we have a heterogeneous teams. Some teams are very proficient with software tools, some others are more they have more problems to acquire them. And yeah, one very important thing for us is that somehow we needed a way to link and to ensure that these projects are aligned to a company strategy and to our objectives. So we know that, for example, there are many project management tools, but be able to integrate the projects of these tools with the objectives and initiatives and strategy of the company was something that we considered was very important, precisely because we needed good prioritization and to invest resources in what we wanted to invest, not in, different things. So one of the critical criteria was this, to have something that help us to align projects to our objectives.
Okay. I mean, those are beautiful points, right? One, since you have a global workforce, having an ease of use is super important. And of course, talking about the ability to help with prioritization and the workflow that you've already mentioned, right? All of that and ability to integrate with the strategic priorities and objectives. And I think that's a very, very important capability that, and thanks a lot for highlighting it. So for the selection process, how did you go about in terms of, who were involved in the selection process in terms of departments, teams, roles of people who were involved? Who were actually involved in the decision making, Bernard?
I'll say that all the corporate team, I must say that for example, we came to the possibility of starting working with Profit.co PPM module, thanks to, I mean, we were just on the right moment, and we got the opportunity to get a general training about the module for all our corporate team. And the result of that training was I mean, there were some enthusiastic stakeholders in the company from all departments. As I mentioned, it's corporate team, so basically involving engineering, IT departments, and people that were thinking, okay, it seems like it's a nice tool. And also from one of the champions, let me say, of introducing this project in our company was human resources, because human resources is actively working a lot in trying to align projects with objectives, and human resources has been the one monitoring or introducing the OKR system in our company. So for us, especially for human resources, since that we can make this link between projects and OKR methodology, was like the turning point. So that's what helped us to take the decision, and most of the people in corporate really enthusiastic about checking this possibility.
Okay, that's pretty interesting, right? So you have had one, the user community itself, people who are using the pilot project and portfolio management, and also people who are, I would say, internal customers, right? And as well as people who are running the OKR program, right? So they also seem to have been involved, right? That's a very interesting composition of the team. So as part of the selection process, did you conduct any trials and demos with potential solutions, right? And how long did it run? What factors did you consider? Can you throw some light on that process?
We were actually considering another tool because we in some other departments we are using other project management tools, especially Asana. Um, but lacking some of these issues like the customized approval flow and of course aligning even though we can make integrations, but aligning directly projects with OKRs was the thing that it made us consider this very quickly. I mean, we embrace the proposal really in very few time, a
Okay,
little time. Yeah.
that's really awesome. Okay, that's great. Now, uh, and thanks, you have already answered a question which I wanted to ask. What other tools were you considering, during the evaluation? That you already I think you mentioned one. Were there any other tools that you considered as part of the evaluation?
Yeah, because nowadays, as I mentioned, we are a little bit, the project management was a little bit, each factory or each site was managing projects as they could. The more spread one was Asana, but actually some people were managing projects like tasks by
Okay.
using Trellos, and some of them were using Microsoft Project.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Great. So,
But not that many. The main ones were Asana, and this was the one that we considered if we needed to push more for that, so we implemented more, or just start to discard it and move to another solution.
okay, awesome. And I think you already mentioned multiple reasons why you chose Profit.co. You mentioned ease of use, you mentioned ability, the custom approval workflow process that was easy to create, and also the ability to integrate with, your objectives, right? That was also super important. I think so. And apart from that, apart from these
Mm.
factors, where the pricing or cost effectiveness of Profit.co, did that play a role as well in your decision?
Yeah, but a minor one, I will say.
Okay.
Of course, price was a turning point also, but it was not the key one. Not not
Okay.
at all.
I'm
Mm.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay. So now, in terms of your experience so far in implementation, onboarding process, right, from Profit.co, what has been your experience so far, Bernard?
Wow, for me, that's one of the amazing things that you provided is that I think that your support is really great. You're open to suggestions. You're really quick and implement and fix any new idea, something that we think could improve. So the team has been really responsive on that, and that gives us a lot of confidence. And also, I think that's something very important that there is a honesty from your side that when we propose something which doesn't really make that much sense, you are open to say, hey, we don't think that's right, or we are not sure. So you're just not saying yes by yes. I mean, you are arguing the things and counter arguing. So there is an interesting discussion on some topics. But the key point for me, and I'm very glad and I congratulate your company about this, is the responsiveness and the openness to receive critics and suggestions, and I'm really happy to that for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So we truly appreciate and we are very grateful, right, for your appreciation. And I'm going to definitely share that with the team. Absolutely, we definitely try to be responsive and open, as you said. And I think trying to keep and staying honest and giving a professional opinion when we say that, that something could be done a little differently from what, you desired. So I would say that's a great compliment. I really appreciate your sharing that, right?
Mm.
Now, what's the stage of implementation you are in right now? Have you started the implementation, or what's the stage?
Yeah, not yet, because this is more internal topic. It's the fact that one of the things that I wanted to ensure before implementing this was to make sure that the methodology that we use to manage projects is simple.
Okay.
Because if we overload teams with bureaucracy or with a lot of steps, this will be a failure, because we are moving from nearly zero to something. So I'm right now in a phase of validating the process with some particular users, with 2 users which have no experience in project management, just to understand if they if they can learn easily the methodology, and if this methodology can be used in profit easily, and if the results and the workload that this generates on people, it's okay for them, and it's not loading them. Once this process is finished, that it should be finished at mid-July and July, then we will make the deploy to the corporate team, make the trainings, and start a 3-month trial phase to see how they respond. And this is done, we will start working with the methodology, and we will discuss internally which are going to be the next steps, meaning are we going to escalate this to the rest of the CELO community, or just keep it in corporate or in department leaders, or how are we going to do this? So at least it's a little bit the timing right now.
Okay. So probably that's a very, very interesting points, and probably one of the last question I wanted to ask you, Bernard, is you mentioned interesting thing about, the importance of methodology. And now that you are just going from zero to something, you don't want this to become very, very difficult, very stifling for people to follow. You want to keep it simple, right? I'm very interested to know, what are your personal thoughts on project management, right? What do you think are the best practices for project management? What are your advice for anybody who does project management? Yeah.
Oof. That's a really tough question, because it basically, it depends on the scope of your projects. Basically, I know that some companies are engaging in super complex projects with multiple departments, with complicated budgets, and sometimes in investing months and years. So for that, of course, we need a layer of complexity. We need project managers that are capable of doing this. And in this case, the methodology that you use can be a little bit more complex. But in CELO particular case, we were thinking, okay, and what happens at user level? What happens when I want to carry on a set of tasks with a one goal, and I'm not coordinated with thousands of people. I'm just coordinated with my colleague in here, or with the guy from IT, which is giving me support. So in those cases, the methodology should be much, much simpler to enable precisely that these people is able to work smoothly without too much bureaucracy. So we try to make things simple, because people get the how do you say it, gets the possibility of dealing his own work, his own projects, personal projects, following a simple methodology. So if the answer to your question depends a lot on the scope and how big are the projects being managed by the company. So
Yeah.
sorry, maybe I cannot help you with that. Yeah.
No, I think that's a very, very, very practical and very useful response. So thank you very much, Bernard. And I know you are just about to start, your journey with Profit.co. Probably we will connect again with you after a couple of quarters or maybe 3 quarters, just to check what has been the experience. But overall, we're very grateful for you to, come and share your experiences, and particularly with your deep experiences in project management. Would love to hear your thoughts later. But thank you very much again, once again, for sharing your experience. Okay.
Great. Thanks to you.